Chapter 4. Practical Emotional Support. Living a failed story takes a toll on your mind. Living through chaos takes a toll on your mind, too. During the COVID pandemic, many people admitted to me that they were experiencing mental challenges that they had never faced before, like life-changing burnout, anxiety, or depression. Almost every one of them expressed surprise and relief when I told them that this was a common response to the pandemic and that they were in good company. If you don't need tools for practical mental and emotional support, someone you know does. And in some future time, you may need them too as things fall apart. Please familiarize yourself with this chapter, especially the last two sections. The last two sections being sharing calm, entrainment, and co-regulation. The eye of the storm is a refuge for others. You can help other people settle and calm. You can set the emotional tone, or seek out those whose presence is settling for you. And the non-anxious presence. Facing hard times, people get anxious. One non-anxious presence can make a huge difference. That non-anxious presence could be you. Here are the other sections in this chapter. Being well enough. The importance of developing skills and practices for emotional and spiritual health in hard times. Everything is awful and I'm not okay. Coping right now. Simple practices to use in the moment to help calm emotions that prevent daily functioning. Relief from difficult emotions. A little background on dealing with difficult emotions and an updated list of practical tools to restore or support emotional stability. Many voices dealing with anxiety and fear. People share a variety of personal approaches. The watcher on the balcony, a practice for gaining perspective on your situation. Getting enough sleep. Some tested strategies for getting enough sleep to support your mood and health. Being well enough begins with a quote from Krishnamurti. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. To embody loving responses to our predicament, I invite you to work toward wellness where you can. Living in a sick system, whether in denial or with awareness, produces all kinds of unwellness in individuals. It may be expressed as bodily illness or chronic pain, as various mental challenges like depression or anxiety, existential despair or bitterness, or in many other ways. The root of this unwellness could be called spiritual sickness or soul sickness, even when it has very real physical symptoms. It should be considered Earth manifesting her disease in one of her appendages, that is, one of us humans. We are inescapably part of a sick system. Still, we can usually take steps to relieve some of these symptoms. We can work to avoid being an identified patient, the weak link who feels and expresses the pain of a whole system, allowing others to avoid dealing with the underlying dis-ease we are all experiencing. If you're already suffering enough to impair your capacity significantly, self-care is your first task. Be gentle with yourself when you cannot do as much as you want, and be gentle with me if my suggestions seem like weak tea. Don't give up seeking and practicing ways to recover some wellness so that you have capacity for wise reflection, considered action, and fun. If one approach doesn't work, try another. Keep trying. Physical, emotional, and spiritual health are each valuable. When one aspect of health isn't available to you, another may be. I want you as fully alive as you can be to add your light to the sparkling web of life that is our Earth home. Spiritual health requires framing our experience with stories that work. I assume you've already found a story that might work for you about our predicament in the previous chapters. If you're asking what story, please refer back to those chapters. A good guiding story will help relieve the kinds of thinking that provoke and prolong despair and chronic anxiety. If you don't have a story yet, search for one that feels true and helpful to guide you. Please don't add to your anxiety by believing you must do the impossible. None of us are going to turn this ship around in time to keep it from sinking. Give yourself permission to mourn, permission to let go of impossible tasks, and permission to just be, to be one of Earth's beloved treasures. Let that be enough for a start. A theme of this chapter will be accepting difficult emotions. That means giving them space to flow and be released rather than denying them until they sabotage us. I will be offering a variety of tools and suggestions. I understand that you may not be willing or able to apply them because of the very suffering or disability they are supposed to help relieve. I am familiar with this dilemma. Here's one approach. Find just one that appeals to you and find an accountability partner. Commit to doing that action and reporting on your progress to your partner on an ongoing basis. Report to them on the schedule that the two of you have established. This might seem like a big ask of this hypothetical accountability partner. In my experience, people who are giving by nature are honored to offer support in this way. Now, let's bring on the tools. Everything is awful and I'm not okay. Coping right now. This resource was created in several versions by Australian collapse-aware psychologist Amy Maxwell. Okay, you're reading this because you're feeling pretty awful about something related to our present circumstances. We know that feeling stormy can be rough, so here are a few things you can do if you'd like to help shift your emotional response. Are you hydrated? If not, have a glass of water. Have you eaten in the past 3 hours? If not, get some food, something with protein, not just simple carbs. Perhaps some nuts or hummus. Brains like a bit of energy after distress. It'll help you reground. Have you showered in the past day? If not, take a shower and feel the safety and soothing of the water on your body. Have you stretched your legs in the past day? If not, do so now. If you don't have the energy for a run or a trip to the gym, just walk around the block. Then keep walking as long as you please. Just move. This will help your body move through your feelings, and if you're outside and it's safe, your bones will feel it. Have you spoken to someone in the past day? Do so, whether online or in person. Make it genuine. Reach out and converse with someone you know. Let them know how you feel and what your fears are. Let it out where you can. Have you heard music in the past day? Play a song at your favorite tempo or dance or sway around the room for the length of the song. Music helps our brains feel a rhythm, and melody can move emotions. If you want to stay in the sad, play sad tunes. If you'd like to move somewhere else, play some music that invites the mood that you're aiming for. Have you cuddled a living being in the past day? If not, do so. Don't be afraid to ask for hugs from family, family pets, friends, or friends' pets. Most of them will enjoy the cuddles too. You're not imposing on them. If daytime, are you dressed? If not, put on clean clothes that aren't pajamas. Something you like. Give your brain something nice that helps it feel safe. If nighttime, are you sleepy and fatigued but resisting going to sleep? Or not sleepy but you ought to rest? Put on pajamas. Make yourself cozy in bed with the sound of falling rain or the sea or something soothing. And she has in parentheses, try the free app White Noise. Close your eyes. Do a few long, slow, deep breaths to settle your breathing. Remember to exhale fully. And stay there for 20 minutes. No screens. Try a body scan or imagination journeying. If you're still awake after that, you can get up again. No pressure. Here are some common things other people have said helped them deal with really big feelings. Holding ice. Talking to someone, a family member, a friend, a helpline. Taking a cold shower. Listening to music. Sucking on a strong peppermint. Touching different textures. Cuddling something soft. Exercising. Doing an art or craft activity. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise. Working backward from 5, use your senses to list things that you notice around you. For example, you might start by listing 5 things you hear, 4 things you see, 3 things you can touch from where you're sitting, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Make an effort to notice the little things that might not always pay attention to, such as the color of the flecks in the carpet or the hum of your computer. Do you feel ineffective? Pause right now and get something small completed, whether it's responding to a communication, doing the dishes, or organizing your things for your next venture out of the house. This is a really big thing. You can't do it all, but sometimes one small step can be enough to help you redirect your energy from worry to action. Do you feel paralyzed by indecision? Give yourself 10 minutes to sit back and figure out a game plan for the day. If a particular decision or problem is still a roadblock, simply set it aside for now and pick up something else that seems doable. Right now, the important part is to break through that stasis, even if it means doing something trivial. Have you overexerted yourself lately? Physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, intellectually? That can take a toll that lingers for days. Give yourself a break in that area, whether it's a physical rest, taking time alone, or relaxing with some entertainment. Wait a week before acting. Sometimes our perception of life is skewed, and we can't even tell that we're not thinking clearly, and there's no obvious external cause. It happens. Keep yourself going for a full week, whatever it takes, and see if you still feel the same way then. If you feel immediately suicidal, call the appropriate crisis line for your region. And then there's the Wikipedia page, the list of suicide crisis lines. You can just Google Wikipedia, list of suicide crisis lines. And it says dialing 988 works throughout the United States. Please tell someone how you feel. For example, a family member, a friend, a counselor. Your brain is stuck and feeling hopeless, and it's not able to tell you useful things. Get an outside perspective. Ask them to stay with you until you get help. Being with someone, even over the phone, increases your safety. Or if it's not possible, then please contact a medical professional and tell them that it's an emergency. And then 4 bullet points. Call your local hospital and ask to speak to the mental health team. Go to your general practitioner or hospital emergency department and wait there until you see a doctor. Call emergency services. The police or ambulance may be able to take you to the hospital. Call your doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, or another mental health worker. Stay here. Stay safe. You've made it this far. You will make it through. You are stronger than you think. Relief from difficult emotions. Begins with a quote from Laura Martin, or it looks like a poem. If you are angry, let your anger be fire, so that it can warm someone chilly. If you are grieving, let your grief be a river, so someone thirsty can drink. If you are numb, let your numbness give you capacity to walk in hard places and not feel hurt. If you are broken, let your brokenness be what makes space for a new thing to enter. If you are fearful, let your fear be a warning signal that others may look up. If you are lost, let your being lost make a new place and call it home. However you are, keep going. However you are, keep going. Anger and fear are healthy responses to unhealthy situations. These feelings demand our attention in a way that pleasant feelings seldom do. Like the red warning lights on a car dashboard, they grab our awareness so that we can act to resolve an urgent situation. The problem with anger and fear comes when situations are not quickly resolved, and these emotions persist. Prolonging an intense emotion that was designed to address dangers of a few minutes' duration damages our bodies. It can stimulate physical illness or lead to reactive nastiness. People hurt people. Self-harm, bitterness, despair, or depression. Persistent fear can become chronic anxiety or panic attacks. Depression and panic attacks can disorder your thinking so that what seems to make sense to do is exactly what will make you worse. Please get help if what you're doing isn't working. In the case of panic attacks, see Dr. Scott Siskin's insightful approach to stopping them at LorenPsych.com. That's LorenPsych, LorenPsych.com. Current disasters and future threats are ongoing in our time and accelerating. The provocation never ends. We must find times and places away from the red warning lights on the car dashboard. This comes in 3 ways. The first way is obvious. The second and the third, less so. 1. Finding solace. We can take a break from the trouble for periods and seek solace in whatever ways that we've discovered works for us. Here are some ways people have shared to find solace. Music, singing, playing, or listening to it. Praying, ritual of any kind. Dancing, counted breathing, water, swimming, bathing, showering, or even washing your face. Hugging, and make it a long one. If people are not available, hug a tree or lean against it for a while. Meditation of many kinds. Caring for a garden, houseplants, a pet. Phoning a friend to say hi. Spending time with a friend or loved one. Reading something inspiring or soothing. Watching children play. Any activity that allows you to get lost in its flow, cooking, art, or craft are some. If you experience trauma-related emotional reactions, please consult the book My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem, M-E-N-A-K-E-M. He offers a deep understanding of the challenges trauma brings, as well as specific exercises that many have found helpful to settle strong emotions. Finding calm and solace is a personal exploration. Your comfort might show up in unexpected places. Instead of reading more depressing news than she needs, Gwen finds comfort in digging into long articles and learning about things that expand her understanding of the human and non-human world. Recently, she read an article that took a deep dive into what privacy means in different contexts. Before that, she was delighted to learn about the fantastic ways some animals have of sensing the world that humans do not. This learning about how the world works brings her joy. How do you find solace in hard times? Make time for those practices. Number 2, allow ourselves to grieve. Grieving invites us to pass through strong, unpleasant emotions to some unknown other side. Strangely, grieving can sometimes offer physical and emotional relief from anger or fear. The feelings of anger and fear both contain a judgment, implicit or explicit. Something is not right. It's like it is likely an accurate judgment, but we often do not have the power to make that thing right in a reasonable time frame. What happened in the past can never be changed. An adaptive response to find that the grief that lies under that anger or fear. Grief at a thing lost that we could not save. This may be a strange and new idea for you. I find it very healing. More on grieving is in the next chapter. 3. Shaping and guiding our thinking. Finally, it helps to notice and minimize unhelpful thinking and behaviors around unpleasant emotions. Most people have minds that behave like toddlers, wandering every which way. Like toddlers, our minds can be lovingly taught by repeated guidance to choose healthy patterns. You can try picturing unhelpful thoughts as cars or buses that drive by, grab us, and take us for a crazy ride. With practice, we can get out of that vehicle relatively quickly to find relief. With more practice, we can watch a thought or emotion drive by and not get whisked away by it. Here are some ways to accomplish this. Avoid nursing fear, anger, or blame. Whether they are justified or not, large doses of fear, anger, and blame destroy our health. Practice acknowledging and then redirecting unhelpful thinking when you notice it. This includes thinking about future scenarios. But I need to plan to figure out what to do. Great. Allow yourself 30 minutes a day to plan and figure out what to do. Then put your worries on a shelf for tomorrow's planning session. In between, live. Avoid unnecessary situations that provoke strong feelings. Provocations may include compulsive news watching or news reading. What news are you helped by knowing, and what is mostly a provocation to suffering? Video news is more emotionally stimulating than print. I usually avoid it. Compulsive social media use or attempting to educate people on social media may be either a move that gives a solace or a provocation. If you use it for comfort, is it working? Avoid having important conversations or making decisions when your emotions are high. The stimulation of anger or fear distorts your perception of reality and takes blood and oxygen away from the judgment centers of your brain. Let me get back to you on that later. ... Practice self-acceptance. This requires a story of your role in the unfolding tragedies that allows self-forgiveness. Self-acceptance also requires a willingness to catch and redirect self-judgments as often as you notice them, and a willingness to believe that what others think of you is not your business. Find a good listener to vent your feelings and judgments. Do not expect to be able to relieve troubled thoughts and feelings by yourself. This may take some experiments and false starts until you find or coach someone into listening well. Get support from professionals, coaches, therapists, doctors, when strong emotions or disturbing thoughts bother you before they disable you. Professionals can provide targeted strategies for your situation, and sometimes medication can be a valuable aid in resetting a troubled brain. Invest in yourself if you have the means. You can ask for a sliding fee scale from private therapists or call your local government to check for low or no-cost options. Therapists and coaches who understand and honor climate-related issues are available. Any meditation practice, counted breathing, sensory, or guided, will do if it provides relief from troubled thoughts. If you believe you can't meditate, please keep trying different kinds of meditation. Do not judge your ability to meditate well. Rather, find the meditation style that brings you some peace. Audio editor's note, Michael Dowd speaking. The most elegant form of meditation that I've ever experienced, and I've done a lot of meditating, is to pay attention to 2 or more sensory stimuli at the same moment. So if you just stop and notice your breathing at the same time that you're also noticing your body resting comfortably, just paying attention to those 2 sensory stimuli, what typically happens is the voice of the mind, the meaning-making, interpreting voice of the mind goes silent. So any 2 sensory stimuli, it could be visual, auditory, sensory, hearing, whatever, but paying attention to 2 or more sensory stimuli at the same moment tends to quiet the mind. It's a very elegant form of meditation. Which of these approaches is familiar to you? Which would you like to try? Forcing ourselves to suffer chronically or punish ourselves for the state of the world, intentionally or unintentionally, increases suffering for all. Seeking relief at intervals, or even for a season when you're overwhelmed, is different from avoiding difficult situations altogether. We know that troubles remain, and we will witness and care as we are able and called to do so. We must respect our limitations and be able to act from and for what is life-affirming. Another poem from Laura Martin. Wake up into a day that you did not summon. Go out remembering the first name that you were ever given, the one told from infinity and fragments of stars. Remind others of that name. Find something soft and let it find you, too. Believe in the life that lives in mud and stories salt tells. Translate what you can of the good and the near. Know that grace is as real as gravity. Receive. Many voices dealing with anxiety and fear. Begins with a quote from Gordon Cosby. When I am afraid, I am miserable. I play it safe. I restrict myself. I hide the talent of me in the ground. I am not deeply alive. The depths of me are not being expressed. When I am afraid, I am a house divided against itself. So more than anything else, I want to be delivered from fear. For fear is alien to my own best interests. Or to put it positively, I want to give myself generously, magnanimously, freely, out of love. I want to be able to take risks, to express myself, to welcome and embrace the future. I asked participants in the Deep Adaptation private Facebook group to share with me how they cope with fear and anxiety. Feel free to skim or skip this long list if your current strategies are working. Here are some of the many replies listed by topic. Explicitly addressing fear. I embrace it, fear about the state of the world. I hadn't cried in many years. Occasionally now I do, and it feels very releasing. Fear is the mind killer is one of the truest statements I have found in this life. Humans need stories to learn, and the place of old fairy tales and fables often filled the cultural role of fencing the fears of the communities. When I learned about a fear as a child, I pushed my limits against it. So for claustrophobia, I would take a sleeping bag into a little tunnel under my bed and roll it into a tight ball in a tight space. For heights, I would go onto a roof. For drowning, go swimming and hold my breath underwater as long as possible. For creepy crawlers, snakes, etc., find non-venomous types and play with them. For every fear, I essentially did exposure therapy before knowing what it was. Fear has been my default emotional state since I was little. A game changer for me has been to learn to be more accepting of it. Under the category of adopting a specific perspective or philosophy, here's 7 or 8 bullet points. I sometimes think about my ancestors who were shot at, took part in resistance against the Nazis and Soviets, ending up in camps and had to migrate to the other side of the world. They had no electricity, a few clothes, often no shoes. My life is easy peasy compared to theirs. I have community! ! Connection to community has enabled me to drop intense fear, to be able to risk arrest by the police, for example. It's important to say I am financially independent, middle-class white settler. Try to think big perspectives, grasping big time, deep time, generations, cycles of life and death, the height of big trees and the extent of roots, the size of the Earth, the size of the solar system, galaxy, and the universe. I remember that there have been mass extinctions several times in the past. Earth will continue. Some life will continue and will evolve. My life is insignificant in the bigger picture. I follow an Epicurean and Stoic path, being with what is, living simply, accepting reality, and cultivating virtue for its own sake. I have daily sanity check conversations with a small group of friends on the Discord app, a philosophical fellowship. I allow myself the space to believe I'll be around for at least a decade. I always have a rolling decade before me. A long enough plausible horizon has made it reasonable to invest time and energy into making my home more of a sanctuary for respite. I also find meaning in trying to be helpful. I deal with the present human-made mess with the sense of humor that I was blessed with, timefulness. Geologist Marcia Bjornrid wrote a book by that name, and acknowledging impermanence. That's most important of all. I have gotten a lot of benefit from reading end-of-life related books to prepare for a loved one who was dying. Also books by Eckhart Tolle and Pema Chodron. Also in my life, and more recently in embarking on my anti-racism journey, I have met and read about many people and entire cultures who have experienced a total loss of everything. Trying to have some patience and compassion for myself seems most useful to me. I have become more appreciative of the method my body, mind, spirit chooses on its own. I dissociate. Under the category taking a break from bad news or stimulation in general, 3 bullet points. When my head is spinning and I suspect I'm going to be waking up in the wee hours, I take L-theanine before bed. It's a non-essential amino acid, also found in black tea. It eases my rumination, and I'm told it's compatible with psych meds. I don't take it regularly. Fortunately, my head only spins occasionally. Withdrawing from the outside world and being still, not dealing with other people any more than absolutely necessary. A day or two in retreat usually suffices for me to emerge and function, quote-unquote, normally again. The most important thing I do is to limit my exposure to negativity and media exaggeration. I read select news articles to stay aware and have curated my Facebook feed to groups that are thoughtful, creative, and are relevant to my interests. Under the subject meditation and spirituality, 3 experiences. The first one, I have been almost overwhelmed with anxiety over the last 2 months from a variety of events. I cope by following a deep meditation practice several times a day of 1, breathing out and down through my body or into my body. 2, checking the tense places and breathing into them, pausing. 3, breathing into my mind and seeing how overcharged, busy, and unregulated my mind is, and calming it and pausing. And 4, asking myself, who has been doing this previous 3-step process? Who is it that is aware and experiencing these sensations, feelings, and thoughts? Then connecting to this true self that simply is, the human part of me, the human being part of me, rather than the human doing. Being with this energy field just for a few minutes, enjoying this me, celebrating my life, being grateful for being here at this momentous time in human history. Another person says, I take THC gummies and listen to doom metal while I paint at night before bed. I've really been into some music where the lyrics speak of oneness with nature, a becoming through unbecoming, growing into something magical and powerful by divesting of the earthly body. I just try to focus on participating in the cycle of life, growing old and decomposing like a tree. And another person says, what has offered me the most equilibrium is simple mindfulness. I also consistently acknowledge that I have never once experienced a future. I have only experienced a now, the present happening in this moment. I will never experience this imaginary future. It will always be now, and the response will be now as well. I have a poem that helps me ground into this present moment which I share. The breath is happening, breathing. The heart is happening, beating. The moods are happening, mooding. The thoughts are happening, thinking. The planet is happening, turning. The seasons are happening, shifting. The sun is happening, shining. The sky is happening, blue. Under the category of taking action of many different kinds, action. Action, love instead of fear. Action, hug my kid. Action, go out in nature. Action, breathe. Watch something funny before bed. Also sometimes whiskey, music, and dancing, and see what's new on social media groups that discuss constructive action. Another person says, some things I do when I remember. Watch birds, write, sit outside, weed the garden, walk. Get under and up into big trees. Conscious breathing. Feel soft textures. Another person says, being outdoors. I am nature. I take long walks. My walks are not only exercise, but therapy, serious therapy. I walked for almost 2 hours yesterday. Beautiful day. I had issues before I went. Much better on return. Another person says, the work that reconnects has really helped me hold space for my grief and fear around global collapse and the ecological crisis. I've been attending the workshops, and I'm now training to be a facilitator of the work that reconnects. Action takes me out of spinning anxiety. I call or write a friend, garden, cook, bake, can or preserve foods. These things shift my focus via what I would call good and useful distraction. They don't ignore our predicament entirely, but shift my focus to things I can control that reflect my values, providing for family and loved ones physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Another person. My approach to being with and moving through fear. Several years ago, I started practicing reevaluation counseling, which is a peer-to-peer counseling practice that embraces the natural human process of releasing emotional, physical, and mental tensions through non-repetitive talking, mostly recalling memories we don't normally talk about, crying, laughing, yawning, yelling, trembling, and perspiring. These are the biologically programmed ways our bodies know how to release fear, grief, anger, etc. Another person says, I read escapist fiction or watch silly romantic comedies. I find that it clears my mind. It's so lightweight that I don't have to think, and that enables me to breathe lightly. And another person says, I was facing cancer surgery earlier this year and used my waiting time to get as healthy as possible and plant a large container garden on my deck. I started seeds indoors and created a timeline for planting and what I wanted to grow. I felt such hope when things began to sprout just a few days before my first surgery that I actually cried tears of joy. After surgery, I slowly paced myself in getting each of these little wonders hardened off, taking them out to enjoy the sun and breeze during the day, and get myself out for the same, and eventually into pots. As summer came, I began to harvest my produce and feel awe that I grew and nurtured these things from tiny seeds over many months, participating in the miracle of life. I now have salsas, pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce, canned tomatoes, pickles, relishes, and jams to enjoy and gift through the winter months. What are your strategies for dealing with tough times? What works to ease your anxiety or fear? It might help to test drive some of the offerings earlier in the chapter so that you can be ready to face the next storm. The Watcher on the Balcony. When I am flooded with emotion or haunted by ghosts of old thoughts or beliefs that no longer serve me, I am not able to participate in the dance of life. I find myself stepping on toes, tripping over my own feet, spinning dizzily, or just stopping in my tracks, frozen by confusion or fear. At times like these, I remember the watcher on the balcony, above the dance floor of life. The watcher on the balcony is me, but a calm me, apart from the drama of the moment. This version of me has access to my best wisdom and resources, and can see from the larger perspective. Here are some of the things the watcher on the balcony has seen. The person who tripped me looks from the balcony to be spinning out of control. He did not mean to harm me. He's lost in his own emotion. The person who lashed out at me thought she was protecting herself. The gut-wrenching agony of grief that left me frozen did not last. It passed after a deep cry and some journaling. The next bout of grief need not scare me. The more I demand of myself, the more I stumble. The despair tells me nothing I do matters, can be eased by doing something seemingly trivial that engages my body and my senses. Things that ease despair matter and are worth doing. I cannot control what other people think of me. I can seek to understand their heart, their feelings, and needs, rather than their judgments. I am loved beyond measure, forgiven, blessed, and supported by the sacred. I have those gifts to sustain me and to share. I don't live on the balcony. It's a bit cold up there, too distant from the dance of life. I keep living on the dance floor, dancing a good part of the time, sometimes getting tripped up or stumbling or stopping in confusion. Then I come to myself and look up to the watcher who helps me to rejoin the dance. The watcher on the balcony practice. Picture a time when you could not enjoy the dance of life. Imagine yourself as a watcher on the balcony. Can you gain perspective on the situation now that you couldn't see then? If you're unable to do this thought exercise, you may want to seek a therapist or a wise soul who can guide you into this ability to take a wider perspective on your own situation. Getting enough sleep. Whatever emotional load you carry, whatever other stressors in your life, sleeping well helps you cope, and sleeping poorly adds to your woes. Worrying about not sleeping well adds more suffering. The following are some simple suggestions, some simple approaches that have worked to improve sleep. Like the other suggestions in this chapter, these approaches require some initiative and commitment. This can be hard to find when you're discouraged and tired. Again, I suggest you find a person who will support you and to whom you will be accountable. Or if you're not ready yet to care for yourself in that way, keep a diary. Make it real. Make it matter. Your well-being matters. Visions of catastrophe don't help you sleep. Yet, Amy Maxwell assures us that it is possible to have anxiety and still sleep reasonably well. Do address your anxiety, too, if that's an underlying issue. But even before you find ways to cope with those anxious thoughts, you can take the following steps to help your animal body regulate your sleep. 3 bullet points. Partake of about 15 minutes of natural daylight in the morning to help your body know the day has started. A short walk is perfect. Sunlight in the morning triggers your body to make the chemicals that help you sleep at the end of the day. If you've been waking up in the late morning or afternoon, set the alarm 30 minutes earlier each day to shift your sleep earlier. Brutal, I know. You will probably get less sleep at first, and you will be more ready to fall asleep at night. Next bullet point. In the exhaustion or depression that often accompanies anxiety, your body gives you the wrong message, that you should rest, conserve energy, and hide from the world. Resting and hiding feed exhaustion and depression. Your animal body must move during the day to know it's daytime. Walking is excellent exercise. For me, gentle activities like walking or yoga usually relieve the fuzzy-headedness that comes with a lack of sleep. A win-win. Last bullet point. Turn off screens an hour before you go to sleep. Dim the lights, too. This requires thought and commitment. You could set the alarm for the time when your day begins to wind down, put away electronic devices for the day, and wait, what to do without our electric devices? Being a little bored is the point. If you're unable to step away from screens, if it's costing your health, then that's an addiction. Perhaps gently tidying up, stretches, meditation, journaling, play music. I already feel myself relaxing, stepping away from the computer. Creating routines helps relieve anxiety too. Dr. Scott Siskin's website, LORIEN, psych.com, lists more sleep hygiene remedies that are simple to try, but not necessarily easy, including what happens if you stop drinking alcohol for a few weeks. If you can't, you may be an alcoholic. What happens when you stop drinking coffee, even in the morning, just as a temporary experiment? How can you make your bedroom as cool, quiet, and dark as possible? This one is key for me. I use earplugs and an eye shade every night. Can you coach yourself to be peaceful about not being asleep when you think you should be? There's nothing like anxiety or annoyance about being awake to help keep you awake. After the above remedies have been tried, congratulations! Siskin's site offers several other low-cost strategies for improving sleep, including tested relaxation routines and therapy apps, and a menu of supplements to try before seeking drugs, all of which have issues. Why is self-care so much work? The good news is that the self-awareness needed to change habits will serve us when we try to live intentionally out of new stories that respect our Earth home and its inhabitants. The bad news is this. When we most need to change patterns in our lives is likely when we're least able. Get help. Pick a change you want to make and be accountable to someone or in your diary. Am I repeating myself? Are you doing it yet? Sharing calm, entrainment, and co-regulation. This section and the next go beyond personal, mental, emotional care, showing how the sense of calm you cultivate can become a gift to others. Entrainment, being carried along in human interactions, means one person's bodily function synchronizes to match another person's. Because humans are so social and skilled at unconscious mimicry using their mirror neurons, entrainment is a common phenomenon once you know to look for it. Here's a simple example. Try yawning in a group. I first learned of this effect when my son was a newborn. In the book Becoming Attached, Robert Cairn noted the advantages of babies sleeping with their carers, as they still do in most parts of the world. He claimed that the steady breathing of the parent helps to regularize and stabilize the breathing of an infant. That parent and child then breathe in rhythm with each other. As I was reading the book in bed with my newborn at my side, I glanced down at that tiny sleeping being. Despite supposedly being unable to move under his own control, he had somehow attached his little hands and feet onto the side of my torso, like glue. I noticed his determined huffing. He was really working at this new thing called breathing. I noticed, too, that at least at that moment, he had no interest in matching my breathing. Instead, I became aware that I had been matching the rhythm of my breathing to his. This illustrates an important feature of entrainment. Power or size does not determine which person entrains the other. Instead, the person who can set the example with determination, no matter how tiny, can entrain others. I want to expand the definition of interpersonal entrainment beyond its usual meaning of the physical synchronizing of two organisms to include co-regulation. Co-regulation is a term in psychology that describes the continual feedback of emotional systems that happens when people are together. Entrainment is lopsided co-regulation, where one person sets the emotional rhythm and the other person follows along, unconsciously matching the stronger rhythm. I count on entrainment when I practice Reiki, a form of healing touch. I cannot predict what my Reiki clients will experience, except for one thing. I can assure the people I serve that they will relax deeply, often falling asleep. I am deliberate in my slow and calm presence, slow breathing, and gentle and very slow movements. I am standing up and focusing my concentration, so I'm in no danger of dozing off. I can reliably entrain the client's nervous system to mine, and they can relax into butter. An enjoyable conversation can be a flowing dance of co-regulation and alternating entrainment. But when the other person refuses to join that dance or is unable for some reason, we feel disconnected. Entrainment can be used to calm emotional reactions. Here's the challenge. The emotionally stimulated person is focused on the provocation, not on the calm person next to them. The calm one needs to get the attention of the agitated one. If someone wants to settle their emotions, I might invite them to take deep or counted breaths with me. This helps interrupt their preoccupation with the disturbing situation and allows them to join my calm. Then I might listen to and reflect their thoughts back to them with empathy. My full attention invites theirs on me, and their attention on me invites them to entrain my calm. I may need to work on staying calm myself if their story affects me strongly. I don't listen and reflect mechanically. I resonate with their emotional expression at passionate moments. But then I return to a calm state. My quiet attention invites them to join me in calmness. Non-humans can also entrain us. You might call it by another name like grounding. I'll never forget the Labrador Retriever who sat with me one long night during my first year away from home at age 17 in the lonely aftermath of a heartbreaking choice. Despite barely knowing me, this dog rested his head in my lap and stared into my eyes with unshakable love as I cried my heart out. His care for my pain brought me so much solace. Some people find that trees or large rocks are good at restoring them to a state of peace. Earth herself, if we lie on the grass or the forest floor, can restore our emotional regulation. Familiar groups easily co-regulate and entrain each other. The mood of the group, and even the behaviors, can run through a familiar repertoire. Part of the anxious feeling of not belonging in a new group can be the visceral discomfort of not knowing how to become entrained with that group. Even if we desire to be entrained, it's usually not a conscious process. When a group has developed an ugly mood, you may be able to entrain them into your more compassionate state by stepping in with a powerful presence and a different perspective. You will need to be self-differentiated, clear on your values and purpose for acting, and able to stand up to the emotional force of an already entrained group while still connected emotionally. You may find that using I statements, I notice, I wonder, I feel, I value, will help prevent defensive responses. Entrainment works in large groups too. It's easier to whip a crowd into a frenzy than to invite it to become peaceful. But it's also possible to speak of sorrowful, joyful, or loving experiences and entrain listeners into those emotions. I expect to accomplish this when I preach. Most people don't seek out public speaking opportunities as I do. Still, in smaller groups, you can practice entraining others when appropriate. If you are sensitive, you may easily be entrained into others' emotional states, whether you want that entrainment or not. With practice, you can grow in your capacity to accompany someone in their emotional state, holding space for it and resonating with it without falling into its rhythm, at least some of the time. Nobody has the emotional stamina to entrain others all the time. Allow yourself to be entrained in your turn, to receive emotional support from wise, calm, and loving people, or those who just radiate vitality and joy. A purring cat, a toddler inviting you into a game, an inspiring speaker, a wholehearted listener who doesn't judge. We were not meant to carry our emotions alone. This entrainment business may seem more complex or subtle than you can follow. If so, remember this. Fear is contagious, calm is contagious, and courage is contagious. Who's setting the tone? Do you want what they're offering? Whose emotions are contagious? And do you want to catch them? The non-anxious presence. Starts the quote from Ella Baker. Give light, and people will find the way. Managing anxiety is a key skill in hard times. Using the tool of entrainment, we can practice being the non-anxious presence to help other people find calm despite the storm. Anxiety is already rampant, so we can start practicing now. When denial is in full swing, slow-brewing crises are not consciously acknowledged. Instead, they manifest as anxiety simmering beneath the surface, while people do their best to carry on with business as usual. Unspoken anxiety affects relationships, mental and physical health, politics, and policy. The nonverbal signals of anxiety are often interpreted, consciously or unconsciously, as anger. People find scapegoats to blame and become less tolerant of differences. The United States has been working its way into a slow boil of anxiety for a while now, and the results are ugly. Incorrectly understood anxiety starts a vicious cycle. Blame and fault are found, more to fear. Drastic action is demanded to stop those evil people, more to fear. The violence starts, more to fear. Anxious people are prone to behaving badly, and not because of bad intent. Anxiety redirects our brains from the most complex and energy-intensive thinking, like creativity, empathy, and careful decision-making. It activates more ancient and reliable brain functions, floods of emotion, threat identification, and instinctual fight, flight, or freeze reactions. Unfortunately, news and social media make money by manipulating and amplifying our anxieties. Anxiety itself has become the cause of much unnecessary suffering and harmful behavior. You can be the non-anxious presence by knowing and living your values and purpose within a family or group, despite provocations to panic. Pre-processing anxiety and grief using a toolbox of release strategies helps to accomplish this. We can make a big contribution to the mood and functioning of a group by staying calm and connected to people who cannot manage their anxiety alone. This is intentional co-regulation and entrainment. Being the non-anxious presence requires self-awareness and commitment. Nobody can be at it all the time. Yet at critical points, one non-anxious presence can turn the tide of a person or a group from despair, fear, or even violence to trust and care. When others see that you are keeping calm, they know calm is possible. You seem downright attractive to them. How do you do it, they ask. The non-anxious presence is a powerful way to be the eye of the storm. Summary and reflection. There's about 10 bullet points. We live in a sick system. It can make us sick physically, emotionally, and spiritually. To counter the effects of that sick system, we will need to invest in our physical, emotional, and spiritual health. If everything is awful and you're not okay, try the simple steps in the second section of this chapter to get quick relief. More tools and practices can help you get relief from difficult emotions, which are in your toolbox. Anxiety is a familiar emotion in these times. People share what they do to relieve it. The watcher on the balcony practice helps us to find a wise perspective on our own thoughts and emotions. Get enough sleep. You can try using the tested strategies listed to support emotional and physical health. Entrainment is emotional co-regulation, where one person sets the emotional rhythm and the other person follows along, unconsciously matching the stronger rhythm. We can use it to share calm and compassion. Managing anxiety is a key skill in hard times. Who's setting the emotional tone? Do you want what they are offering? Whose emotions are contagious? Do you want to catch them? Let yourself be entrained by people who bring you calm and joy. And when you can be the non-anxious presence, you can help other people to calm through co-regulation and entrainment. This is a powerful way to be the eye of the storm.